So I will be speaking briefly about the issue of impunity and the efforts that the international community has been making to end that impunity and steps that must be taken now. So 76 years ago, the UN General Assembly recognized the need for a permanent international court to deal with atrocities of the kind prosecuted during World War II. The International Criminal Court is the legacy of the Nuremberg trials, to never allow war crimes and crimes against humanity, such as those committed during World War II, go unpunished, and to ensure that those who commit the gravest crimes face justice in a court of law. The ICC's role is more crucial than ever. On November 21st, the ICC's pretrial chamber unanimously issued warrants of arrest for Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu and Mr. Yoav Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes committed from at least October 8th, 2023 until at least May 20th, 2024, which was the day the prosecution filed the applications for arrest warrants. It also unanimously issued a warrant of arrest for Mr. Mohammed Diab Ibrahim al-Masri, commonly known as Daif, for alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes committed on the territory of the State of Israel and the State of Palestine from at least the date of 7 October 2023. Of course, while Daif is suspected to have been killed by Israeli forces, the court could not verify this. I recall that these arrest warrants were issued by 3 judges of different nationalities by an independent court who found that there were reasonable grounds to believe that the crimes had been committed based on evidence about conduct that meets the standards for war crimes and crimes against humanity. In their issuance, the arrest warrants reaffirm that all victims of the most grave crimes are human beings deserving of accountability. If every person is equal before the law, these arrest warrants demonstrate that the same is true for both victims and alleged perpetrators. In line with their obligations under the Rome Statute, I underline that member states should cooperate fully with the ICC in line with Article 86 of the Rome Statute. And just to talk about a few of the things that member states are obligated to do under the Rome Statute. First, they must aid in the identification and sharing of the whereabouts of persons or the location of relevant items, the taking of evidence, including testimony under oath, and the production of evidence, including expert opinions and reports necessary to the court, the service of documents, including judicial documents, the facilitation of the voluntary appearance of persons as witnesses or experts before the court, the examination of places or sites, including the examination of grave sites, the execution of searches and seizures, the provision of records and documents, including official records and documents, the protection of victims and witnesses, and the preservation of evidence. And I highlight in particular that in accordance with procedures under national law, states parties must comply with requests for arrest and surrender of persons sought by the court who are found on their territory. I recall that the Rome Statute in Article 27 makes clear that official capacity as head of state or government shall in no case exempt a person from criminal responsibility, and that any immunities or special rules arising under national or international law, which may attach to the official capacity of a person, shall not bar the court's jurisdiction. The court has recently made plain that states parties have the obligation to arrest and surrender anyone sought by an ICC arrest warrant, even if such an individual is a head of state, and regardless of whether the individual's state of nationality is a party to the Rome Statute. The court has clarified that no waiver of immunity is required in such circumstances under Article 98 of the statute, even for heads of state. Since the arrest warrants were issued, dozens of states have affirmed their support for the court and their intent to comply with their legal obligations under the Rome Statute. However, I'm gravely concerned that a number of states have reacted in exactly the opposite manner, verbally attacking the court, its judges, and the prosecutor, at times in language that is entirely inappropriate. Officials from one state labeled the court as anti-Semitic. And elected officials from another state characterized the court as a dangerous joke. Another called the ICC a kangaroo court and disparaged the prosecutors in terms I will not repeat. Some of these statements have included threats of sanctions against court officials, and some have threatened even worse. U.S. officials in particular have made threats of sanctions against the prosecutor, and one U.S. senator issued a threat to specific states that are members of the ICC, saying, quote, "To any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you." Another U.S. senator threatened military action. Let me be very clear. Threats against the ICC promote a culture of impunity. They make a mockery of the decades-long quest to place law above force and atrocity. And sanctions in particular are a shocking possibility. If carried out, they would appear to amount to offenses against the administration of justice under Article 70 of the Rome Statute. Now that we have arrest warrants, we know that any effort to punish or impede or intimidate an official of the court or to retaliate against an official of the court on account of duties performed by that official amounts to one of these crimes under Article 70. But we shouldn't ignore quieter steps. The budget of the Office of the Prosecutor was recently cut during the Assembly of State Parties. What I figured on the back of an envelope was around 10% from its proposed budget. These cuts, in strong contrast to the extremely supportive budgetary approach during the preparation of the Ukraine investigation, raises questions. I call on all states to respect the court's independence as a judicial institution and to protect the independence and impartiality of those who work within the court. Impeding the work of the court and its prosecutor in particular is detrimental not only for accountability in the occupied Palestinian territory, but for international justice as a whole. We're concerned to see countries that consider themselves champions of the rule of law taking actions to intimidate an independent court and to thwart accountability. These actions stand in stark contrast with other efforts, as I've said. And as parties to the Rome Statute of the ICC, states parties should refrain from attacking or interfering with the court's independence and should instead take affirmative steps to protect the ICC in the face of ongoing threats and intimidation. Ethical behavior and attitudes on the part of states parties, including in their public communications, are essential for promoting the rule of law, the protection of human rights, and for ensuring public trust in systems of governance at the international level. To end, it's time to end the double standards. International justice exists or it does not. We can't abide justice for people from some states and the protection of the law for some people, with impunity for people from other states and an abandonment of the resulting victims. Attacks on independent judges and prosecutors of the highest level criminal court, created by the international community to punish the worst crimes, are shocking and beyond the pale. Threats by some states against others that are aimed at coercing them into ignoring their international law commitments are outrageous. States that advance the rule of law and count themselves as among the most law-abiding in the world must come off the sidelines to defend the court, its judges, its prosecutor, and all of its personnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman Khariji from Kuna. I have just a simple question, actually. The ICC decision against Netanyahu and Gallant is just against two people. So I know the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice, but my question is, have you like a list, or are you preparing like a list of all the names that are responsible against in this genocide? Not just officers in Israel, but also all these person in other countries, but especially in Israel. Thank you so much.
Is the question for the Special Rapporteur?
I think it's an important question because it allows me to say that, of course, these two arrest warrants are only part of the story. As my colleagues have already said, every state around the world has the obligation to ensure, uphold, protect international humanitarian law and to end any genocide. And that means that they should be taking all affirmative steps to ensure that they're preserving evidence, that they are taking steps to cooperate with those bodies that are undertaking efforts to bring people to justice. And then they should be using whatever is available within their own legal system to take the steps they need to hold people to account as well. So I talk specifically about the ICC because I'm very concerned about the attacks by different states on that body, and because it has an important role to play in holding those at the highest levels to account. But of course, anyone who's engaged in crimes against humanity, genocide, and war crimes should be held accountable for those crimes as well.
Thank you so much for stopping by. Kindly leave a comment and tell us what you think about the video. See you in the next one.